Hi. Good evening. Can you hear me on the mic? Is that fine? Can you hear me at the back? Raise your hand if you can hear me. Thank you. That's great. My name is Matthew Skelton. I'm the co-founder and principal consultant at Skelton Thatcher Consulting. This is my colleague and co-founder of the company. We've been going for just over a year. I'd like to share some experience and ideas with you this evening that relate to the shape of teams within organizations and what can make an effective use of those different teams. Thanks to Marco and the Dr. London guys for inviting us tonight. I'm glad to be here, and there's no train strike. The stuff I want to share with you tonight, I started thinking about 2 years ago. If you head to devopstopologies.com, you'll find the original blog post that kind of kicked off this thinking in my head. At the time, it was mostly ideas, but actually over the last 2 years, we've been validating some of these patterns and sharing them with clients and other people, and that's why I'm here today. There's actually two different versions of this talk. One is where I stand here and kind of talk like this, and there's some slides behind, and that's probably fine. Hopefully it's useful. There's a different version which involves some colored hats, and in about 5 minutes I'm going to ask you to vote for which version of the talk you want me to give or you want to see this evening. The version of the talk with just me involves you sitting there listening, drinking beer. The version of the talk with the hats involves 4 or 5 volunteers who will come up here to the front and use some of these fine props that we've got here. We've got a variety of hats. You can still drink beer if you like, that's fine. There's a variety of hats and various props as well. So have a think about it, and we'll take a vote in a few minutes. I'm going to spin through some patterns for teams, which I'm sure everyone here will agree are non-optimal. The obvious starting point is where we have dev and ops just not communicating at all. So this is the classic DevOps divide. We throw it over the wall, and it kind of falls and breaks in the middle. Here's another one, though, which I think is almost worse, which is we have a DevOps team that sits between development operations and prevents the dev and ops talking to each other ever, if that's permanent. We'll come back to this one later on, because there is a pattern which looks quite like it, which is slightly different. How about this one? We don't need ops, we've got the cloud, right? So ops just disappears. We don't need that ops thing anymore. What's this one? Oh yeah, you might have a DevOps team that's managed as if it were a dev team. And they don't talk to ops either. They just do like fancy stuff like Chef and Puppet and this kind of thing. Or DevOps is actually just the SysAdmins playing with Puppet. That's pretty cool. That works. They don't talk to the devs either. What else have we got? This is a classic one. A guy called Matt Franz on Twitter found the blog post and came up with this, which blew my mind. Ops was a team, was a silo within one of the dev teams, managed by a dev manager, who had to provide infrastructure, services, and configuration and this kind of thing to all the rest of the teams. That's just completely broken. You have to try hard to get that kind of screwed up. I don't know. I'm not going to talk much about this kind of pattern tonight, but I'll leave it with you, which is I think the gap between development and DBAs, or database administrators, is bigger than the gap between development operations. I'm not going to justify that, but I personally think there's actually a bigger challenge in DevOps. Actually, I don't know what it's called. Dev doesn't come with a nice acronym. Dev-DBA something. Anyway, I personally think the gap between development and some database teams is much bigger than perhaps between ops. All right. So that's all maybe all nice and hypothetical. Where have we actually used some of these patterns and some of these anti-patterns and some of the patterns that we'll see tonight? So we've been trying and testing these in quite a lot, well, in all of our clients over the last year. We've got clients in financial services, online payments, software tools, publishing, and so on. And pretty much all of them have seen kind of the way that we're talking through these different topologies and team configurations, if you like, and said, actually, that's really, really useful. That helps me understand how I need to move my my technical strategy forward. I was really excited to see when I went into one particular client gig was that the guys had read my blog post from 2 years ago and actually drawn this kind of stuff out. This is a 2-year timeline for how they see their dev and ops teams coming together over 2 years. And this is before I'd shown them the slides. So they'd actually come up with this thing. They actually budded off a couple of extra teams and they came together and what have you. So they'd found this and they'd been thinking about it internally before I even went on site. So I think that was, for me, quite nice because it showed that people were finding that sort of thinking useful. It's time to take a vote. Do you want to have the nice, safe, non-interactive version where you get to just sit down and me talking? Or do you want the interactive version where I will need 4 or 5, I can't remember, willing volunteers? So who votes for the nice, safe version? Who votes for the interactive version? So I should warn you, though, that the interactive version has not been deployed to production before tonight. Are you still happy with that? Right, so let's go for 4 volunteers. Ideally, I'd have 1 developer. The first one to run out will get the gig. 1 ops person, if you think you're an ops person, the ops person at the back. 1 DBA, or database-y person. You got a database-y person? Are you a DBA person? No? Oh, another one. Well, you can be a DBA person if you want. You can play that role. All right, so someone who can pretend to be a DBA. Just you don't need to know anything. It's just wearing a hat. In fact, that's pretty much all it is. Otherwise, I'll have to pick somebody because then we can get on with the session. Anyone? There's no technical test. There's nothing at all. All you have to do is wear a hat. Yay! And is anyone here an SRE? Anyone do anything like?
I want to be the SRE.
You can be the SRE. Okay. And who like? Go on, database. Perfect. Great. Great. Round of applause for these 4. Yep. Right. So the first kind of the first useful pattern. You have to come to this side for now. Actually, if you get, tell you what, stand on the platform. There we go.
I know I'm short.
Stand on the platform. In fact, if you two guys come in the middle. So you just had you two. If you just step back for a sec, that's fine. Right.
So is this the point where we
Yeah,
the dev?
this is good. This is good. What we need is this is supposed to be a DevOps horn of plenty, right? So if you look in the middle, there's a sort of green bit in the middle, and so you're doing DevOps because you're collaborating with each other, and you're probably collaborating on something like a chef cookbook. So there you are. Hey, right, awesome. And
has that not normal?
there's a second pattern which looks quite similar, but actually you're collaborating on a huge amount of stuff here. In fact, these guys are probably with this fully embedded pattern, type 2, they're probably exchanging roles. So the person who's doing the development 1 week might actually try some ops, like on call the next week, and the ops person might go and sit with the development team, and they're probably doing a lot of the same stuff because it's like a single unified product like Netflix or Facebook or something like this, or a startup where everyone can really focus on the same stuff. So actually, in this particular case, you might actually decide, to strangle you,
Yep.
to actually wear the different hats for 1 week. There we go. So they're sharing the love, sharing the activities. Now, here's a slightly separate one. What I'm going to do is swap you back around again, because if you've if you've actually outsourced your infrastructure to, say, Amazon, then actually you don't actually need to talk to him very much. In fact, you probably don't want to do that at all. And in fact, you don't really care about the DevOps thing as Amazon. What you might inside, you take that one out. All this guy needs, all the developer needs, is an API key. That's all he needs. Doesn't need no stinking DevOps, all he needs is an API key. And as long as you pass that key to the infrastructure as a service guys, that's all you need. And then then some DevOps happens on this side, but actually, as far as Amazon are concerned, they're not interested.
Amazon's going to do that for me.
What's interesting about this pattern is it's not just sort of outsourced infrastructure as a service that can work like this. This could actually be a quite useful pattern for some organizations who, if their ops team is not really particularly advanced in terms of scripting, if they're still quite a bit backward and old school in their thinking, actually you might decide to say to the ops team, provide us with this stuff, as long as we've got an API and an endpoint and an API key and I can self-serve. I don't care how you build it. I don't care if you use monkeys. I don't care if you have an army of people manually typing this stuff in, SSHing onto the servers and doing it all manually. I don't really care as long as I get the service I want. That's a bit extreme way of putting it, but you see where I'm going. Some organizations actually, this might be a better starting point. Rather than trying to do deeply kind of collaborative DevOpsy stuff in the middle, maybe it's actually better to push a team out and minimize the surface area of contact and collaboration. Maybe that's actually a good thing for some organizations. DevOps as a service. So we mentioned Rackspace earlier, and I know that Rackspace do DevOps as a service or something equivalent. So actually, because you're a kind of a developer in a startup, you're quite small, you don't have all the skills and capabilities to do all this crazy new DevOps stuff, whereas you as Rackspace have got all the skills in the world.
I'm not going to work like 40-hour days.
Yeah.
No, 60.
60-hour days. Then you can reach out from there and offer that DevOps stuff as a service. There we go.
See how far it gets.
Yeah, exactly.
Before it breaks apart.
How about this one? So we need one of you guys. Actually, we do need 5 people, but if anyone want to be in a DevOps team, volunteer quickly. Right, Jimmy, come to the front. So actually, Jimmy is going to represent the temporary DevOps team. You can wear the hat if you like. You can wear it as a hat. There we go. So he's actually going to be a temporary DevOps team, and over a period of maybe 18 months or 2 years, he's going to drag these two teams together. Does that fit? Yeah. Just about. He's going to drag these two teams together, bring them together like that, over a period of maybe 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, something like this. But after that time, perhaps, the DevOps team disappears because it's done its purpose. Or this one, which is kind of similar, where the team brings Dev and Ops together, but then remains as a facilitator in the middle. So perhaps you're doing some kind of, you're getting them to talk to each other, you're making sure that they're facing the right direction, this kind of thing. Yeah, that's it. There we go. Yeah. Okay, that's all good. Here's one. So SRE, I've forgotten, what's that? Site reliability engineer, thank you. It slipped my mind. So we have a site reliability engineer. Now the interesting thing about this pattern, so let's shift this way. So we've got some bit of DevOps. Actually, we don't need a separate DevOps team in this one. So thank you very much, Yuri. Round of applause. Hey, awesome. And we've got ops kind of over there somewhere, because you're actually doing hardware and racking and stacking and kind of crazy stuff with Hadoop and whatever. We can share some DevOps love in the middle here, but only if the SRE team is happy that the software produced by the devs is actually up to standard. So this doesn't really happen until there's a big weighty tome of evidence that that application is ready to go into production. So as long as you hand that over, you take a look at it and you go, oh, there we go. There's the DevOps happening.
While he reads it, I got myself and he can put me down after.
So there's the SRE accepting that software into live service, into production, but only if there's evidence that it's actually going to happen. Thank you very much. Round of applause for Michael. I'm fine. Oh, here's another. Sorry, this is a different one. So we're now with all the hipsters and so on. We're using containers. So we've got a container here, and what we're going to do, the extent of our DevOps is you need to move back a little bit this way actually. the extent of our DevOps is we're actually just going to lob the container across the stage and hope that the ops people catch it and run it in production, right? Oh!
Just like Docker
But if it works correctly, then once you're finished with your, there we go, and it's now running in production. So that's the nature of the interaction there, maybe. It's maybe a bit contentious. I'll take questions at some point. Not today. Oh, here we go. Actually, I'll go on to the second one. I do actually need two people, but there's only one hat, so you can wear the database hat. And perhaps, so it depends whether you want to be like an ops DBA or a dev DBA, depends where you want to sit. But anyway, kind of the magic DevOps cornucopia sort of sits somewhere in the middle if you guys are collaborating on some database changes there. Or not. Depends how good the collaboration is, right? Yeah. And that's all we've got. Round of applause for everyone who's been on stage. Thank you, guys. Go for it. Awesome, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I'll give that back as well. So I was chatting to a guy called Eric Minnick, who works at IBM. He's one of the technology advocates at IBM for DevOps, and he saw the early version of these slides and said, well, actually, in IBM, because it's such a big organization, a massive enterprise, DevOps actually looks a bit more like this. So he took the kind of different topologies and said, actually, different teams, different products actually have quite a different sort of different challenges. And he's in the team in the middle, which says DevOps evangelists. And what they do is they help to make DevOps work in the right way for the different teams, depending on the stage they're at. I can't do better than Eric's quote, actually, which is, the goal for a DevOps team should be to put itself out of business by enabling the rest of the organization. I'll leave you with that thought, without justifying it. Really, there's no right team topology. There are plenty of wrong topologies for organization, depending on where the technology skills lie, depending on where the organization wants to go. DevOpstopologies.com is the original blog post. At some point, I'll put some new slides linking from there, this kind of thing. These slides will be online in about 40 minutes, once I'm on the train. And yeah, we're hiring. So if you like this, thinking about this kind of thing as well as technology, then give us a shout and we'll have a conversation. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
What do you think about a model whereby you have a central operations team, but if you have a big project, say, you have an operations person that's embedded in that project? Because that seemed to be the model you were quite sort of skeptical about earlier, but I've seen it work quite well.
What's the model?
So say you have a big project in an organization, and there's lots of developers, contractors, lots of money, and they have a dedicated operations person that sits in that team with them.
Okay.
And then you have a central operations team as well.
Yeah, that seems to work quite well. So it's either someone seconded or on a sort of longish term duration into that dev team or into the product team. Yeah, that seems to work quite well. Of the Spotify, you've probably seen, if you haven't, have a look at Spotify tribes. There's a really good article about how they kind of do a sort of matrix management type thing with different spheres of expertise, linking different kind of people together so that the single ops person in the dev team doesn't feel lonely after 6 months. That's the goal. The danger is they feel really disconnected from other people. But yeah, it does seem to work well for lots of organizations. Yeah.
Can I ask one more? What about if you've outsourced your development?
And you're screwed.
And with that, thank you again.
Thank you.